Episode number 4 of the Stoppage podcast. We've been out for a couple weeks. There was no fights, and then there was some travel involved, so we couldn't sit and film. But we're back. And Keelin, I'm just going to start with this one question. What the fuck just happened at UFC 269? Please.
Jesus God. Ladies and gentlemen, I think an asteroid's just hit planet Earth. We're in shell shock. We don't know what the hell is going on. Nothing makes sense anymore. Let's just get into it because I don't even know what to say anymore.
I mean, just shout out to the freaking Venezuelan vixen, man. Juliana Pena. Everybody, including myself, and everyone who knows anything about fighting, and even someone who doesn't know about the sport at all, was picking against her all week, all month, since the past 2 months, since she showed up in the press conference and things like that. She's been saying she's not scared of Amanda. She's going to beat her. And guess what? She did it pretty freaking convincingly to beat the GOAT, to slay the dragon like that. Before we get into anything, congrats to Juliana Pena. We're all sorry, and you are the fucking champ.
Shout out the dude who lost 320K betting on Amanda.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't lose any money like that, but yeah, I can't be mad, you know. Whatever $100 or so that I could have made, I can't be mad. I mean, look at what happened. Like, the feeling you get, like, money's money, and it's not great to lose it, but dude, what the fuck just happened?
Oh man, I don't even know.
All right, let's get into it. So UFC 269 obviously went down last night. We had so many fights and so many great fights, great performances, a couple of close fights, close rounds, and just an overall amazing card. I mean, that card just makes you love the sport, love the UFC, respect the fighters and things like that. That was definitely one of those. So if that was the first time you ever tuned into a fight night or a pay-per-view event, like, you're lucky, and so are we to have witnessed something that went down like that. It was awesome.
Oh, hell yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time watching, first of all, welcome.
Yeah.
Might I say, you managed to witness the greatest shock in the history of mixed martial arts, so
Absolutely.
You couldn't have picked a better night to be involved in this. But dude, just what a card from top to bottom. Absolute insanity with a capital I, insanity. Yeah. Amazing card, absolutely perfect. Stacked from the bottom to the top. I mean, the fact that Dominic Cruz was on the prelims against Pedro Munoz tells you how lit this was. Let's just go. Let's
exactly. All right, let's get into it. The early prelim started with Jillian Robertson and Cachoeira, flyweight women's. They kicked things off. Robertson actually has lost a couple in a row, so people are counting her out. Cachoeira missed weight, and it felt like she didn't even try because she had 2 hours. She didn't come back on the scale or nothing like that. So that was a little weird. Robertson got the finish. She submitted Cachoeira. I think it was a choke at the very last second of round 1. Cachoeira tapped. I usually don't like to bring things like this up, but Cachoeira seemed to have been poking her Robertson's eyes a couple times, which is pretty dirty. Yeah. Either way, I'm happy that Robertson showed up and performed like a professional, got the job done.
Yeah, great win for Robertson. Excellent point to make about Cachoeira. Just looked like she didn't even try to make weight. Came in so far over. And the fact that she had those 2 hours and didn't even come back tells you everything. Even less respect for trying to repeatedly poke her in the eyes. Yeah. But credit to Robertson, amazing performance and a brilliant choke, and most importantly, a deserved one too.
Yeah. Then we had some bantamweights. Randy Costa is usually very entertaining. Went up against Tony Kelly. Kelly had a sweet game plan, I think. He just came forward and didn't let Randy open up at all because Costa's really good with his boxing. Tony Kelly just shut up all the offenses and then got the TKO in round 2.
Yeah, great win for Tony Kelly. As you said, Randy Costa is a dynamic kickboxer. We saw that against Adrian Yanez, I think, in his last fight, which is one of the most brilliant fights I've ever seen, by the way. Absolutely awesome. Unbelievable. For Tony Kelly to go in and shut down Randy Costa's offense, like, that was so impressive.
Yes.
So impressive. So credit to Tony Kelly. That's a big dub for him because that's a big name at bantamweight. Randy Costa, if you don't think it is, you need to look again because that's a big scalp to have.
Absolutely. Then we had the Wizard Ryan Hall, the most. I don't know how you prepare for the fight against him or how you, like, the commentators were struggling tell what he was doing, like when they were doing the jiu-jitsu exchanges. He fought Darek Minner. I think Minner obviously had so much success on the feet, which is why it's weird that he went to the ground so much to dance with Ryan Hall on the ground. That's not what you want to do. And his coach, James Krause, is saying the same thing. Hall got the decision because he attempted so many submissions and he had him in the better positions.
Yeah, great win for Ryan Hall. Good, very important for him to be back in the W ladder at featherweight. Yeah, Darek Minner had a decent fight, but why you keep diving to the ground against one of the most dangerous black belts in MMA, I don't think I'll ever understand. That being said, credit to Ryan Hall. Very good win. Important to be back in the momentum ladder. And yeah, big win on a big card. Credit to Ryan Hall.
Yeah, 100%. And then the couple of other flyweight women went at it. They're only 24 and 22 years old. Miranda Maverick and Erin Blanchfield. Blanchfield from New Jersey. She comes with that wrestling background and she's so good at it. She completely shut down Miranda Maverick for all 3 rounds. In her debut UFC fight, she got a couple of 10-8s. I could have seen 1 or 2 10-8s in this one as well. But like Miranda Maverick's a badass, and to see what Erin did to her was awesome. Very impressive.
Yeah, Miranda Maverick's a great fighter, but Blanchfield just shut her down from beginning to end, which I didn't see coming. I thought Miranda Maverick would come out and get the knockout, actually. Yeah. But credit to Erica Blanchfield, she fought a really good fight, went in with a perfect game plan, and just shut her down the whole fight. So credit to Blanchfield, big statement win.
Yeah, super impressive. She's only 22 years old and she's handling women like that, just taking them down at will and things like that. That's awesome.
She's as old as me.
Yeah, I'm older than her.
She's getting one on the Maverick.
Yeah.
I don't know who that says more about.
It's crazy. Yeah. Nah, it's fun. Then we had Eric Anders taking on Andre Muniz. Muniz, the submission guy. We see what he did to Jacare in his last fight. And he finished Eric Anders with the same thing. He got into an arm bar and got him into some tough positions. And Eric Anders, I mean, not his fault. You got to tap. You don't want your arm to snap in half and stuff like that. I mean, but a sick performance by Andre Muniz for sure.
Dude, Andre Muniz is such a good fighter, and he's a real danger at middleweight as well, in my opinion. You know, went out against a very game fighter, very experienced fighter in Eric Anders, and got that arm bar in and just did not let go. Another very impressive win, and another very impressive scalp as well at middleweight too.
Yeah, Eric Anders is a name at middleweight, and Eric has been for a while.
Yeah, really impressive win. Great performance against a well-known opponent. Yeah, huge credit to Andre Muniz. It's onwards and upwards from here.
Yeah, for sure. Then we had the Beverly Hills Ninja Jordan Wright take on Bruno Silva. Couple of big guys at middleweight, heavy hands. Jordan Wright, I thought was doing well, but then he got super excited, and then you can't do that against a puncher like Bruno Silva. He will put your lights out, and he did last night.
Oh, good Lord. What a knockout from Bruno Silva. Absolutely pinpoint. Yeah, Jordan Wright actually went out, and for that first minute or so, had a very good fight. You know, he was actually outstriking Bruno Silva in places, but then, like you said, Tanaay, and you're absolutely right, he just got too excited. You know, got too caught up in the striking game, tried to clinch him against the cage, got caught flush on the way out, and it was night from there. Bruno Silva chases him, lands, I think, a straight right, and knocks him on his ass. So credit to Bruno Silva, unbelievable win, highlight reel worthy, and he did himself a big favor there. I actually think he got a performance bonus as well.
Yeah, so I was going to bring that up later with the performance bonuses and stuff. There was a ton of bonuses, and you can, with what happened, that was 8. You're right. With what happened last night, you can't see it going any other way. You got to give all those performance bonuses because all those fighters very well deserved it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jordan Wright, he started, like you said, he started off so well, and then he made a few bad decisions, got a little too excited, I think, got caught. That's what happens. And up next, we had Bam Bam Tai Tuivasa taking on Augusto Sakai. Always entertaining Tuivasa. I really thought Sakai would pose more of a threat because he's such a good boxer himself. But man, Tuivasa took it to him in the first round, and the second round, within 30 seconds, he had him out of there. It's on top of the cage, doing a shoey. What's new?
Dude, the only thing that was surprising about this fight is that it reached the second round.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that stunned me. Again, I very much agree with what you've just said. I thought Augusto Sakai would be a bigger threat. I thought he'd use some of that wrestling and jiu-jitsu to nullify Tai Tuivasa. but Ty more than held his own. Very good against the octagon as well. I was very impressed with that clinch work.
Yeah.
Looks like he's been working on that a lot. And then 30 seconds into the second round, boom, the steam train from Australia arrived, and it arrived straight on Augusto Sakai's chin, knocked out cold, Shui on top of the octagon. What more can I say?
Tai Tuivasa, 4 in a row, 4 knockouts. He's on top of the world right now. Everybody is
Derek
so
Lewis.
entertained by him. Yeah. Everyone's so entertained by him. I mean, just his personality. He walking out to Barbie girl and things like that. It's awesome. He's just drinking everybody's beer from anyone's shoe. Like, that is crazy.
The guy's a nutcase, and I love him.
It's awesome. It's amazing. Up next, we have the fight of the night. They both got bonuses. Pedro Munoz and Dominic Cruz. Munoz got him in the first round. Really bad, I thought. I thought he was out for a second right before he went down, but credit to Dominic Cruz, man. He recovered and clearly won rounds 2 and 3. Yeah. Dude, that was very impressive from Dominic Cruz because Pedro Munoz got heavy hands. He's a tough guy to hit. But Cruz, man, that was vintage performance.
Yeah, absolutely. This fight was the tale of two Dominic Cruzes. That first round was probably the worst I've ever seen Dominic Cruz. And rounds 2 and 3 were the best I've ever seen Dominic Cruz, certainly in the last 5 or 6 years. I have no issue saying that. Dominic Cruz in that first round just got caught, and he got caught really badly. In fact, a lot of other bantamweights would have been finished if they didn't have the footwork of Dominic Cruz.
Yep.
Thankfully, Dominic Cruz is Dominic Cruz, so Dominic Cruz has Dominic Cruz's footwork, and he was able to survive. So perfect. Rounds 2 and 3, Dominic Cruz was vintage, just looked perfect, crisp boxing, changing up the angles of approach in and out, fluid, smooth, composed. And he very clearly outfought Pedro Munoz for those last 2 rounds. So I had a 29-20 at Dominic Cruz. I think about every other human being on planet Earth did as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, great win for Dominic Cruz. He is solidified in that top 10 again now, and I'm really excited to see what's next for him. Big credit to Pedro Munoz too.
Yeah, Pedro Munoz, always fun to watch. He always comes to fight. He takes so much damage because he knows he's not going to go down. He can give it back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but Cruz, super impressive. He's in the mix. I think 1 or 2 more fights, he's back in the title shot. And I think in a tough division like 135, it's still doable because his style is so different than any other fighter that anyone's ever seen. And it's a really tough puzzle to solve that he will always get that decision over people.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Look, I don't want to play matchmaker on here necessarily because we're still very close to UFC 269. The smoke hasn't been settled yet. But at the moment, I would love to see Dominic Cruz next against the main card's opener, Sean O'Malley. I think that's the fight to make. Both guys seem to want it, and I think this is where it goes.
I agree, but Cruz has been saying that I want to fight guys ranked higher than myself. So he would take on someone in the top 5, top 6. I think he should be ranked like 7 or 8 right now. So I think the Aldo fight is awesome. Dillashaw is great. Font's good too. Sandhagen's, all those fights I think are awesome. And you win against one of those guys, you're fighting for the belt next pretty much. Any of those 4 guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's either you fight the old school and Aldo and Dillashaw, your former rival as well, Dillashaw, or you fight the new school and Sandhagen and Rob Font. All of those guys are in the top 5. And then you get a shot, in a tough division.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no easy fights up there, but if anybody has the talent to do it, Dominic Cruz does.
Yep, absolutely. And he's done that before. He came back from a long layoff, got his belt back. Unfortunately, he got injured again, and he has to build back. And he's on the right path, so good for him, man.
Yeah.
Next, we had the featherweight fight between Josh Emmett and Dan 50K Ige. Emmett obviously was one of the heaviest hands, if not the most, in featherweight. I'd say Calvin Kattar comes a little close to that. But Josh Emmett relied, I think, too much once he put him down early in the first round. In the second round, he really got caught by Ige. Ige made some awesome adjustments, jabbed him, and won the second round. But I think Josh Emmett took the third round. I thought it was really close, but I think Emmett took it slightly. I think he just pulled his power a little back, and he was like, let me fight smart and not just try to take his head off with that bomb of a right hand.
Yeah, perfect summary. I got to be honest, this fight was perhaps a little bit more lackluster than I thought it would be. Maybe that's just because every other fight was insane. I
Yeah.
don't know. It was probably a combination of both, actually, if we're being fair. Yeah, I think it was. I think it was Dan Ige that clearly took round one. Josh Emmett clearly took round two.
No, it was the opposite because
Oh,
Emmett
sorry, it was the
dropped
other.
him. Yeah, it was
You're
the
right.
other way
Yes,
around.
it was the other way around. I apologize.
Yeah.
And then the third round was just razor thin. Honestly, I had a 29-28 Josh Emmett, but if you'd have given it to Danny Gay, I probably wouldn't have been mad either way. That's how close it was. Both guys could have thrown more in the third round to decisively win it. And that's the problem when you don't throw as much as you can. You leave it in the hands of judges who could give it to the other
Yeah.
fighter. But that first round, Danny Gay looked fantastic. He looked great the whole fight.
Second round.
Or round two, sorry. Numbers 1 and 2, I'm getting mixed up today. Round one.
Yeah, it's really hard. One
yeah,
and two.
yeah. I haven't moved on, all right?
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. No, round one, Emmett looked really, really good. His reliance on the right hand was working because he was as fresh as he could be.
Mhm.
Landed a number of really good shots on Dan Ige, and Ige took them really well too. Second round, complete inverse. Danny Gay's boxing started to take over. That jab was vicious. Josh Emmett just had no answer for it throughout that round. Got bloodied up around his nose a bit too. Just pinpoint from Danny Gay. Nothing less than we expect, and just really well done. And then third round, razor thin. Both guys could have done more. Both guys could have pushed the pace a little bit more. But you know what? I don't think either guy moves up or down much from that fight. Josh Emmett gets the decision, but it was what it was.
Yeah, 100%. Third round, razor thin. First two rounds are pretty clear. One of the judges had it 30-27, Josh Emmett. I mean, how do you see the second round going to Emmett? How?
Dude,
Ige clearly won the second round. Come on.
Whoever gave that 30-27 needs to be thoroughly examined.
That's horrible.
What in the hell are you thinking?
I don't know. It's awful, I think. But whatever. It was a good fight. I thought Ige made some good adjustments, but Emmett has that power, so it gets scary,
Yeah, for sure.
Emmett made some good adjustments as well, to be fair, because he lost the second round. Good fight. I'm a fan of both those guys. And then we move on to the main card, starting with the Sugar Show, taking on Raulian Paiva. So Sean O'Malley comes and does what he does. He knocked him out in the first round. And, I mean, he looked amazing, I thought, especially when he got him hurt. When he got him hurt, he got him up against the cage. He dropped him one more time. And then credit to Paiva, he got up a couple more times than anybody, like a lot of other people would have. He's got heart, man. He's a good fighter too. But O'Malley, when he had him and he was throwing those combinations against the fence, was beautiful to watch. He hit him in the body, went up. That was it. That was awesome.
Oh, my Lord. What a performance from Sean O'Malley. First of all, credit to Raulian Paiva for being that goddamn tough, because not many people, I don't think, would have gotten up from that. He is really he's kind of in between flyweight and bantamweight. He's a bit too big to be a flyweight, but he's not big enough to be a bantamweight. Mm-hmm. So he's in a weird mixture in that way. But he fought relatively well, I think. Probably about as well as anybody has fought against Sean O'Malley, aside from Chito Vera. He had a bit of success early on with his calf kicks. I don't think they had much effect, but I think they were registering on O'Malley, and that's when he had to switch stance. But what a finishing sequence from Sean O'Malley. That was just highlight reel worthy, especially that right hand to deliver and the left hook upstairs. He said he's been watching Canelo tape and taking inspiration from Saul Canelo Alvarez. And it was pretty obvious. It was some beautiful boxing from O'Malley throughout the fight, especially that jab left straight combination. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And just a stunning finishing sequence, really.
Mm-hmm. Who'd you like to see him fight? What do you think?
It's hard to say because bantamweight's so loaded right now and there's so many fights that could be made. If you're talking in terms of immediate availability, I would say Dominic Cruz. Okay. But if you're asking my dream matchup right now, Jose Aldo.
All right. I don't mind that. I was thinking a little lower ranked persons, maybe someone like Marlon Moraes. Because Moraes is ranked
That could
10.
work.
Yeah, he's number 10 right now. I think Aldo will get a little too high for O'Malley because he still hasn't fought someone ranked. I guess Paiva was barely in the 15. Or I think just rematch Cheeto Vera.
Yeah, Cheeto Vera rematch could work.
Yeah.
Actually, Sean's been adamant that he wants to right that wrong. That might actually make a lot of
He
sense.
doesn't even think it's a wrong.
And Cheeto Vera just knocked out Frankie Edgar too. Yeah, I say make that happen.
Yeah, why not? I mean, they're both very entertaining fighters, and I mean they have some sort of heat going on too. So I think that's the fight to make as well.
Agreed.
Then we move on to the flyweights. Kai Kara France, the Kiwi, took on the former bantamweight champ Cody Nolov Garbrandt. Cody went down from 135 to 125. I thought the weight cut looked great. He did an interview after. He wasn't struggling or super stuck out or anything. I'm sure it was tough, but I thought it looked fine. But once the fight started, the feel-out process was a little bit long. But Kai Kara France, the first time he touched him, Garbrandt was out of there almost.
Oh man, this breaks my heart so much to see. I love Cody Garbrandt. I really do. He's one of the most dynamic fighters I've ever seen, and he's one of my favorite bantamweights of all time too. 2017 Cody is arguably in the top 10, top 15 bantamweights of all time. I really do believe that for that performance against Dominic Cruz. But Cody Garbrandt could not be any further from that version right now. I think he's in real trouble. And I'm being serious. I really think he is. You know, he's trying to move down to 125 to resurrect his career. Maybe he's taken on too high ranked of a flyweight in Kai Kara France, but he's gone in, and I think he's gotten emotional again. I really do. You know, like you said, that feeling out process was quite long. Because of how dynamic the fight was, I felt it actually went quite quickly. But in terms of the actual clock, it was quite long.
Yeah.
Cody did have some initial successes. You know, he had 1 or 2 decent leg kicks. Some of his jabs were connecting quite well. But like you just said tonight, and I can't argue with it, the first decent straight punch that landed, Cody was on his ass. And he just couldn't get back up again and stay up.
Yeah, I really thought Cody was going to win because he looked a lot bigger than Kai Kara France and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. But as soon as Kai hit him, he was on his ass, and then he made sure to keep him there. Cody got up a couple more times, but then Kai Kara France, man, what can you say? He did that to a former champ. Much respect. That's some power right there.
Dude, Kai Kara France hits like a 135er. Yep. And I don't think Cody factored that in at all in this decision to fight him, if I'm honest with you. But, you know, all credit and all respect to Kai Kara France. You know, he could be in line for a title shot.
100%.
I genuinely think he is. I would actually give it to him, perhaps ahead of Davidson Figueiredo, but that's another discussion. The problem with Cody Garbrandt now is that Cody Garbrandt's chin is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. It's out there floating somewhere in the universe because he just doesn't have it anymore. Any half-decent jab that's landed in Cody Garbrandt is going to trouble him now because he's taken so much damage so early on in his career that he just can't take it. And this is just where Cody's at such a crossroads in his career now. You know, he's gone down to 125. He's been knocked out. He was up at 135 against Rob Font, got dominated easily.
Yeah.
I don't know where Cody Garbrandt goes from here.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's sad, you know, you work hard, you make weight 10 pounds lower. He said he hadn't made 125 since he was in high school or something. That's a long time.
But he did look good.
He looked great, I thought, and he filled up well too. But yeah, I mean, his chin is not holding up at 135 or 125. He really wasn't able to capitalize on his power from 135 to 125. Credit to Kai Kara France, man. Dude, that guy landed some bombs. And yeah, give him the title shot. There are a couple of people in line, Askar Askarov and Pantoja. The Figueiredo Moreno fight's already been made, the trilogy, which I don't like at all.
No.
Because Moreno won so clearly in the second fight, and the first fight was a draw. And yeah, I'd give the next shot probably to Kai Kara France. Dude, you do that to a former champ and who's a weight above you. And he's such a big name. Like Cody Garbrandt's a very famous UFC athlete, been a champ. I think you deserve the title shot after that.
I think you skipped the line with that, Jed.
Yeah, you skipped the line.
any win Alejandro Pantoja has or Oscar Oskarov, I think that leapfrogs both of those guys for that
I agree.
shot. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, Cody, man, what can you say? I think he should be done. I think he should retire, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because of the damage, like it's for his health, not because he's not winning. Like,
yeah,
when Masvidal was losing those few fights in a row, he wasn't taking this kind of damage. He wasn't looking like anytime he'd get touched, like you said, almost anytime you get touched, you're gonna get put down and things like that. And I mean, that's Cody's style of fight. This is what makes him so entertaining, but it's also kind of what's causing him this kind of downfall and these losses that he's in, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there was a point in Cody Garbrandt's life, I think it was before he fought TJ Dillashaw the first time, where he was 11-0 in his career. And 6 fights later, he's 1-5.
Yeah.
And
4 knockout losses. That's the biggest problem.
And 4 knockout losses. I mean, look, it does get to a point where you have to consider this for your health. You are absolutely right. The problem is that this isn't a situation where you've been hit with a bomb once in your chin and you've been knocked out, because that can happen to anybody.
Absolutely.
Every fight he fights, he's getting touched and he looks in really bad trouble.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, it's not my place to tell a former champion to retire. It just isn't. But at some point, the question must cross his mind. It has to.
Yeah, it's so tough how it's gone for him. I mean, he dominated Dominic Cruz. Like, I mean, no one does that to Dominic Cruz. It's tough, like, to figure out what Dom's gonna do. Then he fights his former teammate and rival, TJ Dillashaw, and almost beat him. Dillashaw was saved by the buzzer in that first fight, but unfortunately gets in a firefight, gets knocked out. Same thing happens in the second fight between him and Dillashaw. Dillashaw catches him, knocks him out kind of bad. And then against Pedro Munoz, when he fought, again, he was winning, got no firefight, got blasted. Then he had the sweet knockout of Assunção. Then he lost to Rob Font. And now he's gone down to 125 and lost again. Dude, like, that is a fucking insane career. Like, you're untouchable for so long. And then, unfortunately, it's just, I don't know. It's so tough. It's tough to watch, you know. You like him or not, like, you don't want someone to get hurt that much.
Dude, it's genuinely so hard to watch.
Yeah, it's bad.
I'm a big Cody Garbrandt fan. I really am. I know we both are. But, you know.
Well, I'm not as big as you probably, but yeah, I respect what he's done. I thought he was phenomenal.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it gets to the point, like we said, where you have to at least consider it.
Yeah.
Because, to be honest with you, the losses I don't necessarily mind. Because as far as I'm concerned, and this is just my opinion and nothing more, there is now a question mark over the TJ Dillashaw wins because of what we now know, those 2 wins with EPO and so on and so forth. But even if we take those out of the equation, the knocked out cold by Pedro Munoz, dominated by Rob Font, and now flatlined by Kai Kara France, your chin just can't take that kind of damage. And you know, I don't know. I really don't.
You gotta, like, think about it, you know. Just think about it. I don't know. Yeah, it's something to consider, the R word for him.
Yeah.
All right. We'll figure out what he does. I think he'll probably say something in the next month or so. Good on Kai Kara France. Went out there and absolutely got an amazing win. He also got a bonus. Very well deserved. Former champ. And as Keelin said, he pretty much gets to skip the line and fight the flyweight champion.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And I agree pretty much exactly as to what you said. Up next we had Jeff Neal and Santiago Ponzinibbio. This fight, I was a little disappointed in Jeff Neal. I thought when he was punching straight, he was landing. He's a heavier puncher and the better kickboxer overall. But credit to Santiago, man. Santiago came to fight. The guy was tired by the end of round 1, but he won round 2 and made it very close in round. He actually won round 2 pretty convincingly and made it pretty tough on Jeff Neal in round 3. That was a split decision. I agree that Jeff Neal won, but I wish I'd seen more, and so did his coach.
Yeah, I had Jeff Neal winning this fight as well, 29-28. But Jeff Neal looked very good. Straight shots were really good, but definitely needs to do more activity when he's in the octagon. I think especially you make a really good point by the end of round one. He was far too content to sit behind his jab and play it safe. Whereas huge credit to Santiago Ponzinibbio, he came to commit war basically, and he tried to engage every chance that he could. Jeff Neal just played it too well, too safely, stuck behind the jab and used it to ride out a very uncomfortable decision. Round two, Ponzinibbio definitely won. Round one, Jeff definitely won. Round three, it's actually a little bit like the Josh Emmett Dan Ige fight. That round three is a toss-up, really. I mean, like I said, I had Jeff Neal winning, but if you had Santiago Ponzinibbio winning, anybody who's watching, I'm not mad at that because I can understand why you would think that. That being said, I had Jeff Neal winning, which is a good win. Ponzinibbio is a big name at welterweight, but he has to be more impressive in his next fight, or he's just going to end up going nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his coach is telling him in the middle of rounds, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're landing on him so much. Why don't you throw more? The funniest part was when I think Saif Saud is his coach. And I think accidentally Jeff Neal might have gone close to poke him in the eye or kicking in the balls or something like that. And Jeff went up like that just to tap gloves with Ponzinibbio. And Saif Saud goes, don't be his friend. Fucking fight him. That was so funny and so clearly heard. And yeah, that was the summary of the whole fight. Like, credit to Ponzinibbio, what he's been through and a near career-ending injury. He's come back and he fights the top 15, top 10 guys consistently. That always creates a firefight. And yeah, I mean, Jeff Neal got the job done. Like you said, and like we've been talking, that should have done more, and he probably should if he wants to get up there and compete for the belt someday.
Yeah,
because he has the skill and power. He does. He really does.
That's the irritating thing. If Jeff Neal was a bang average fighter, no one would have an issue with it. But he's capable of so much more. And especially in a division as loaded as welterweight, you have to be going out there and going the extra mile to get that win. It's a bit like middleweight with the likes of Marvin Vettori and so on, and Derek Brunson a year ago. It's not good enough to just wait out the decision. You've got to go out and push the pace, especially when you have your opponent exhausted. There just isn't an excuse.
Yeah, especially when you're better.
Yeah, especially when you're better on that night. You've got to push the pace more.
Yeah, definitely. All right, now we move on to the two title fights. Couple of absolutely insane. I mean, what can you say about Juliana Pena, man? It's not enough. It really isn't, because everybody called her stupid, delusional. Keelin can't even show his face because of what he was saying about her. Jeez.
But it is what it is.
She slayed the dragon, man. She got the GOAT. Amanda Nunes, she won the first round pretty comfortably, and she was smiling and things like that. And I was looking at my buddy, and I was like, all right, this is going to go like it always does. She's felt Amanda's power, and she's going to be scared. But Juliana Pena, man, she stood in the box, exchanged punches with Amanda Nunes, which is a crazy thing to do, and came out on top. She had Amanda hurt so bad, she had her shook. Like, I think all that she was saying, that she's not scared, and the fact that she stood there and withstood those punches and gave back. Juliana Pena had some nice combinations, although a lot of it was just swinging, and she just wanted to show how tough she was, which also worked to her advantage big time. But she was also landing some pretty solid combinations. And once she took her down, man, she didn't even have any hooks in or nothing. She got Amanda's neck. Nunes was so tired, and she was missing so many shots. And as soon as Juliana Pena got on that neck, she tapped right away.
Oh my God, I never thought I would say these words, especially after the reign that we've seen. But Amanda Nunes has been beaten, and beaten well.
Yeah.
That's the shocking thing.
Convincingly. Absolutely.
Convincingly. Like, all throughout fight week, I've been thinking about this Juliana Pena, Amanda Nunes fight. And I thought this was just Pena drumming it up, trying to be different from everybody else, claiming she's not scared, but really being scared. And she was right all along. She was absolutely correct. Everything that she said she would do came true. Amanda Nunes, when I won the first round pretty comfortably, had some very good moments, had Pena stung quite badly once or twice. But in that second round, she just got baited into a massive bar fight.
Yep.
And Pena did it so perfectly. She stayed calm, let Amanda stand flat-footed and tire herself out. Amanda Nunes literally punched herself out, and she was exhausted by the time Pena even threw anything back. I mean, Pena lands that punch, drops her, gets her on the ground, and like you said, no hooks in against Amanda Nunes, who was so tired she couldn't even get her arms up. Pena locks in the rear naked choke, and it's over. I mean, I gotta be honest, dude, I still can't believe it. I'm that stunned. I can't believe I've even just said what I've said. And don't get me wrong, I have nothing against being wrong. In combat sports, anything can change on a dime. But I did not expect this. And you know what? I have no problem holding my hands up. Juliana Pena, huge congratulations to you, because you did just shake up the world. You just shook up the greatest women's fighter, arguably of all time. And you deserve all the credit that you get.
Yeah, massive respect to Juliana Pena. Massive apologies to her. Everybody was saying she's delusional. She's going to get waxed in the first round. It's going to be a short night for her. She's going to be looking at the stars when she wakes up. And I guess she was, but on the right side, you know, she was up there with the belt. And dude, like the thing that happened last night is just unbelievable. Minus 1,000 favorite, Amanda Nunes, the greatest of all time. I noticed you added that arguably the greatest, but before this fight, there was no argument.
Well, I did technically, but
all right, fair enough for you. But for many people, there was no argument.
Yeah.
I mean, what she did was awesome. And I think Chael mentioned this when they were talking post-fight. He was like, Juliana, more than anything, beat Amanda Nunes' ego. Because when it was starting to get a firefight in the second round, Amanda was actually, I thought she was pretty happy too. She's like, oh, she wants to stand in the pocket with me. Let me land some punches and then we'll see what happens. And Amanda, to her credit, she did land those punches. You could see how swollen Juliana's face was after the fight. But man, Juliana Pena, she didn't go anywhere. She came and she fought a wild fight. She got her down and finished. That was unbelievable, especially because, like, I remember when she came to the press conference, because they were supposed to fight probably a month ago or a couple months ago or something. Juliana Pena shows up at the press conference after Amanda Nunes had COVID, and she's like, Amanda's scared, Amanda's dodging me. And as any normal person would say, we would all say that Juliana Pena is delusional. She doesn't know what she's talking about. All she's doing is, trying to get herself gassed up and, trying to hype the fight. She stands no chance. Everybody and their mothers thought that Amanda Nunes was going to do what she did, but not Juliana and her teammates and stuff like that. So, I mean, that was a huge thing. I mean, it was tough to go to bed last night after that, and also after Oliveira, but still, that was a big thing in the sport. Massive.
You don't become a minus 1,000 betting favorite for nothing. Exactly. Let's just put it that way. And Juliana Pena upset pretty much every casino, every bookmaker, every gambling person on planet Earth last night. Mm-hmm. Everybody had the odds against her, and she proved every single one of us wrong, very much myself included, because I thought this would be easy for Amanda Nunes. I really did. Yeah. And the second she got into a firefight and her punches had no effect, she panicked. She stood there and thought, why isn't she falling? Yeah. I thought it was going to be like Chris Cyborg. I really did. Yep. But Pena stood there, stayed in the pocket, composed, and took her chance. I mean, I'm still really short of words for what to say. Except for congratulations.
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, everybody that's awesome. I can't be mad, losing money on that. The thing that just happened was so big. It's nuts.
Man lost 320,000. Yeah. Hang on a sec. Let's just. I'm sure Neil and Gary are going to break this down in a few days. And Neil and Ian, sorry, don't know what's going on. But I mean, you were only going to gain 20K from 320K. What are you doing?
But that was a guaranteed 20K, and you know what I mean.
It wasn't.
But it was though, until it's not. That's the thing.
Oh,
and if you want to drop like 300K on something, you probably have a lot of millions. So I mean, I think you'll be fine.
Oh man. Oh, that's all. Like, we're gonna have
Yeah,
to move on to the main event because I'm just completely shocked.
yeah, let's do it. All right, so main event, we had the champ, Charles Oliveira, taking on Dustin Poirier. Poirier, the former interim champ, beat McGregor twice, worked his ass off to get back to the title fight. Very well deserved, well earned. Everybody counted out. Well, I won't say everybody. A lot of people counted out Oliveira, called Dustin Poirier the uncrowned champ and things like that. The first round was absolutely crazy. I couldn't believe that Oliveira was just coming back, taking all those shots, standing in the fire and boxing with Dustin Poirier, because you don't do that and then, you know, take so many shots like he did and then come back to win. So I mean, so happy for Oliveira. He came back round 3, choked him out. I mean, in round 2, Oliveira beat the crap out of Dustin on the floor. He hit him with so many elbows. It was crazy.
Oh God, it was vicious. Amazing fight, but by God, was it vicious. Shades of the co-main scene in the main, I would say. We had someone who was underwritten by a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not by all. Even I said Oliver had a very good chance to retain, but a brilliant, brilliant fight. Round 1, Dustin Poirier goes out, starts teeing off on Oliveira, really. I'm thinking, is this shades of Chandler? Maybe.
Yeah.
Oliveira does so well to stay in it, shows that toughness, shows that heart, comes back out for round 2, gets Dustin on the ground and beats the living bejesus out of him with those elbows. I mean, there were occasions where the doctor or the ref arguably could have stopped it, I think, personally. But again, just showed so much perseverance to come back, like you said, and do the damage that he did. Credit to Dustin, he was able to weather out the storm until round 3. Charles gets his back against the cage, gets the jump on him, gets the flying rear naked choke. Dustin just has no answer for it. He starts attacking the arms very well, is defending them, and then for some reason, for a split second, he just drops them. He just drops his arms.
No,
And then
I think Oliveira might have baited him into it.
yeah,
He
I
did
think
something. I mean, Dustin's a really good. I mean, he's really good on the ground, whatever BJJ. But
he's a black belt.
Oliveira is next level. Most submissions in UFC history. I mean, you don't
Oh yeah.
compete with that level. So
Well,
I'm sure Oliveira had some tricks up his sleeve that we probably couldn't even understand, and that's
possibly.
why he could readjust a couple times and make that grip real tight. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, credit to Dustin, but it was all along. It was Oliveira's night, man.
Yeah, for sure. You make a really good point about the actual finishing sequence. I mean, Charles is like a 3rd or 4th degree black belt. He's probably the most dangerous jiu-jitsu black belt that's in the UFC,
Oh yeah,
possibly even ever, depending on your opinions on that. I'd make the argument that he is myself. But yeah, that finishing rear naked choke was like a noose around Dustin's neck. It was so tight. I mean, he had that fully locked up
yeah.
as well and just squeezing the life out of Dustin. I actually think it was a worse rear naked choke than Khabib's when he beat him in Abu Dhabi. I think it was much, much tighter. And Dustin just had no way out. So massive, massive credit to Charles Oliveira. Not that he was not before, because he was, but he is so deserving of being the lightweight champion right now. And
Oh yeah.
the fight that I actually want to see in 2022 is Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira, because I want to see what happens.
Yeah, because that answers a lot of questions about Khabib Oliveira
A
too.
lot.
I mean, Gaethje deserves it next, but I do think that Oliveira gets past Gaethje, and then if Islam can beat Benil Dariush, which I think he will as well, they're
Yeah.
definitely gonna meet up. And yeah, that was gonna be so interesting because I mean, you take a guy like Oliveira down, and he's pretty comfortable, Like he'll grab your neck or grab an arm or something. Like he's fine.
Dude, he will grab an ankle if he
Yeah,
has to. He will
that's
take
such an
your leg.
interesting matchup, and it answers so many questions about not only Islam. I'm not saying he's the exact same thing as Khabib, but he's the most similar thing you can ever get to Khabib.
Yeah.
So that will answer a lot of questions. That would be an amazing fight.
And dude, that's going to be so much tighter than people think it will be as well.
Yep.
That's why I want to say, because that's going to be razor thin margins.
Oh yeah. No, Charles Oliveira, so much respect. I mean, they were talking about him not having heart and him not being a champion. Dude, he just beat Dustin Poirier. He came he was hurt in the first round. He never went anywhere. and he finished Dustin Poirier. Like we said in the previous fight, it was convincing. You know, every question was answered by him yesterday. That guy's the fucking champ. I mean, it was just so cool that both those guys got to compete for the belt. They've had the hardest roads. Besides, I'd say Tony Ferguson, they've had the hardest roads in the division. And,
the two most deserving fighters to fight for that title. And even in a way, even though Dustin did lose, in some ways he didn't, because he proved that you can always come back and you can always have the heart and you can always get back to the top again, or at the very least the precipice of the mountaintop. Last night just wasn't his night, but he could still be back.
Yeah, I think so too. He definitely could. And what he did after the fight, giving Oliveira 20,000 to whatever charity in Brazil he wanted to. Classy. I mean, it's tough to even speak when you lose like that in a championship fight, and he just made a massive gesture like that. And that's good. That just shows you his character. He's a class guy.
Yeah,
and both of them. Yeah. No one's more deserving of that position. I mean, dude, I'm still happy for Charles, dude. It's freaking awesome, man.
Dude, congrats to the Bronx.
Yeah, dude, Bronx. Fantastic. All right. So that was that. UFC 269. An absolute banger. A couple of shockers. 8 bonuses. The earth stopped for a minute or so around that time when Pena got the tap from Amanda. I mean, dude, can't ask for a bigger pay-per-view to close the year. More surprises, better fights.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. It was manic from top to bottom. One of the best pay-per-views I've seen probably ever.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely dynamic.
And we didn't mention, like, Amanda was very good after the fact that she lost as well. It's tough when you're considered the GOAT and someone beats you like that. She said, yeah, it wasn't my night. Congrats to Juliana. She's a great fighter. Tough. So that was very respectable, honorable thing to do. You know, some people take losses. She took a loss like a champion.
Yeah, and they'll run that back in early 2022 as well, for sure.
Yeah, they've got,
which is another fight I'm really excited for as well, because I want to see Amanda without the title, and we'll see if she can come back and get her gold.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, a little sip of water, and we move on to little breakdowns for next week. We've got heavyweights in the main event: Derek Lewis and Chris Daukus. And co-maining that is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Bilal Muhammad. Let's get into the Lewis Daukus. Derek Lewis just fought for the interim belt. He dropped one to Cyril Gane. I mean, Gane's just such a skilled, amazing fighter. Derek Lewis has most knockouts in UFC heavyweight history. The guy comes to fight and he can punch your brains out. Chris Daukus, man from Philly, used to be a cop. And he's done really well recently. He's been finishing a lot of his fights as well. And yeah, really good for Chris Daukus to get a fight like Derek Lewis and build his name up. I'm not saying Derek's going to be easy to put away or anything, but I think it's a great fight and a super dangerous one for both these guys.
Yeah, it's a really great fight of heavyweight, actually. I'm a big fan of Chris Daukus. Like you said, his rise to the top has been really impressive. Some very convincing wins. And one thing that I really like about Chris Daukus is actually his grappling. It's gotten really good over his last few fights, especially. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what could be Derek Lewis's downfall in this fight. Because, again, look, I love the guy from H-Town. We all do. Derek Lewis is the fucking man, no matter what you say. But his grappling is, with respect, non-existent. And anytime you can get inside and clinch him, you're likely going to get him down to the ground. And I can see Chris Daukus being able to do that if he isn't caught. So either way, it's a brilliant matchup at heavyweight. It is number 3 against number 7. So it's got pretty big implications for the top 5 as well. If Daukus moves, he's eyeing an all-out assault on that top 5 in 2022.
100%. Yeah, I agree. Like, Chris Daukus is a really smart fighter, I think. And Lewis is really good fighting wrestlers. If the wrestlers make a mistake, he'll capitalize on them. But if the wrestlers are following their game plan, he will struggle a little bit. Like, I'll do a direct comparison. Like DC, when Derek Lewis fought DC, completely shut him out. But when he fought Curtis Blades, a little sloppy with those takedowns, got caught with the uppercut. Derek Lewis came out on top. So I think Daukus will be very well aware of that. And if he just has to not do anything super silly and not take big risks. He just has to fight smart, I think, and he can get it done. But Derek Lewis is a smart guy too. I mean, he'll bang
Oh
you
yeah.
up,
Yeah, the
like he
man's
says.
sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, the thing with Chris Daukus is as long as he doesn't telegraph his takedowns and as long as
Exactly.
he's able to disguise them, I think this fight could be very good for him. But if he's messy and even one takedown, he's putting himself straight in the hands of Derek Lewis. And those hands are one place you don't
You
want to
do
be.
not.
So I'm super psyched for this fight. I think it's going to be great. And I can't wait to see it. It's a great card.
Yeah, great fight to close out the year. Solid card. I mean, fight nights have recently been pretty thin, but this one's pretty good. In the
Yeah.
co-main event, we've got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson taking on Bilal Muhammad. Big opportunity for Bilal, I think, going up against a guy like Wonderboy, and I think it's going to be a really long night for Bilal because Wonderboy is so tough to face, and Bilal is not a big 170er. He's not excellent at anything like a grappling or a striking or anything like that, and he's not super big, like I said. He's going to have a tough time. I think Wonderboy is just going to stay outside and touch him up.
Yeah, Bilal Muhammad's kind of the textbook definition of a jack of all trades and perhaps a master of none of them.
Yeah.
He's really, when I think of Bilal Muhammad, he's kind of like a 6.5 out of 10 at everything. You know, he's not a 10 out of 10 at striking. He's not a 10 out of 10 out of wrestling. You know, he's just good at everything.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the best way to describe him. The problem is he's coming up against one of the trickiest specialists in UFC history, and that's Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think this could be a very long night for Bilal Muhammad because I don't think Bilal is going to be able to close that distance quickly enough. And if he does, I think he could get very nastily tagged by Wonderboy as well. Yeah. We know the bag of tricks Wonderboy has up his sleeve. We know he can pull out those high kicks, that long straight jab as well, but he can rush in with a bunch of hooks as well. So Bilal's got to be really careful about this because he can get knocked out in a flash if he doesn't.
Yeah, Wonderboy is such a tough puzzle to solve. I mean, we were talking about Dominic Cruz, that it's tough to get a hold of him or land a punch or kick on him. Wonderboy is similar, but Wonderboy will hit you back and he'll hit you hard too. He's one of the best.
Oh, yeah.
He's a karate specialist, one of the best kickboxers to ever enter the UFC octagon. And Bilal's going to have a tough time, but it's a big spot for Bilal, man. If he can get this win, he's in the top. He's a player at welterweight then.
Oh, yeah, he is. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so that's that. We got a couple more good fights. We won't go too much into detail. Asun Sao and Ricky Simone. We got Darren Elkins, Killer Cup Swan, so that's going to be an absolute banger. So watch for that one to open the main card.
Yeah, those are really, really great fights. Rafael Asun Sao, one of the best bantamweights right now. I think he's a really good fighter. Ricky Simone, very good fighter in his own right as well. Fought the likes of Uriah Faber, always puts in a decent performance no matter who he fights against. Excuse me. That's going to be a great fight to watch because those guys both love to throw hands. And I think someone's going to sleep in that fight. And then we've got two absolute legends.
That's the one.
Yeah. Textbook definition of legends in Cub Swanson and Darren Elkins. Darren is called the Damage for a reason. He takes it and he does it in equal measure. The guy always gets split open and then he splits you open. So that tells you all you need to know about him. And Cub Swanson's just a legend of the featherweight division. Been there for so long, had some of the best fights that I've ever seen. That is going to be a fight of the night contender right there. So don't miss it.
Yeah, starting the main event. Yeah, do not miss that fight, man. It's legend v legend. Two absolute dogs going at it. So, yeah, solid card to finish out the year. And let's move on to the top 5 of the week. With Dustin Poirier losing his second title fight in the past 2 or 3 years, we're going to talk about some of the fighters we think who've been the best fighters to never get their hands on the actual UFC belt, which means interim belts do not count. The undisputed champion of the world. Any weight, anything, but just that they haven't touched the actual UFC belt.
Yep.
All right, you ready? You want to go number 5?
Yep, let's get it started. And let's get it started with the big pick, ladies and gentlemen. my number 5 for this week is Alexander the Mauler Gustafsson. This guy put on arguably the greatest light heavyweight title fight of all time against John Jones. And many people are fervent in their belief that he won that fight. Again, I'm not against that argument. I do think Jones just about won, but I'm not against the argument that he did win. And look, the guy's just one of the most technical light heavyweights we've ever seen. Some of the best boxing we've ever seen. Some legendary fights against the likes of Glover Teixeira, John Jones, Daniel Cormier. He had an unbelievable fight with too. And yet he's never been the full champion, which is so weird to think, as he's been in so many classic fights. So for me, worthy of starting off my list is Alexander Gustafsson.
That's hard to argue. I mean, look what he did against Jones in DC. He gave them a real run for their money. Arguably almost beat, if not won, both of them. It was a really close fight versus DC as well. Obviously, he had those awesome performances, like the Glover Teixeira, like uppercut combination was phenomenal. He's such a good professional. I think so, yeah.
I think they were both split decisions.
Yeah, exactly. He was the first one to take John Jones and DC down, so that just gives you so much. You don't need to know much else,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Gustafsson, class guy and great fighter. Definitely worthy of winning a belt.
Oh, for sure.
And number 5, I've got the Soldier of God, Yoel Romero. Romero, I mean, one of the scariest guys to ever enter the octagon. World-class wrestler, just so much power in his hands, so explosive. Never seen a guy built like that enter the octagon. And he had a couple bites of the title, but he lost a couple of bangers to Robert Whittaker and then a stinker to Adesanya. But what he's done to the rest of the division, like he's beat so many former champions in Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman, you name it, he's beating them and he's beating them bad. So yeah, Yoel Romero, special athlete, and possibly could have won a title.
Dude, that's a great pick. I mean, Yoel Romero is built like the Thing from the Fantastic Four. That's what he reminds me of. He is insane physically, and he's one of the most terrifying fighters I've ever seen as well. I'm pretty sure he broke Luke Rockhold's jaw, if I'm not wrong. That tells you the kind of power the guy generates. So, yeah, that's the perfect pick right there. Romero and Gustafsson at number 5. Can't think of any better fighters.
Yeah.
And now it's on to number 4. Who is number 4 and the greatest fighter never to win the title? It's Dan Henderson for me. Dan is just a legend. He really is, of 205 and 185 too. The H-bomb, one of the most devastating weapons we've ever seen. Gave us arguably our first ever meme of when he knocked out Michael Bisping back in the day, depending on how you see that. That's not for me to say, that's for people to say. But the guy was just a great fighter. I mean, world-class, elite-level wrestler, and had hands of stone in those divisions. Knocked out so many guys, out-wrestled so many guys. And it's amazing to think that he never actually won the title. So, for me, number 4, Dan Henderson.
Yeah, I have Dan Henderson at number 4 too. Like, all the reasons you said, absolutely true. He's won belts in every other organization he's been in. Say Pride, whatever. He was the first person to knock out Fedor. I mean, that is just insane. That was at heavyweight. This guy fights at 185 and 205 usually.
Jesus.
Dan Henderson, obviously the Michael Bisping moment, and he's had so many great fights against Shogun Rua. Michael Bisping, the rematch when he was like 40-something years old in England, he beat the crap out of Mike, but Mike got the job done when he was the champ. And yeah, it is very surprising that Dan Henderson's never touched the belt, because dude, you beat a guy like Fedor and so many other legends in Pride and things like that. Being the smaller underdog fighter, I mean, yeah, all respect to Dan Henderson. Great fighter.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And to me, actually, Dan Henderson is what Kelvin Gastelum arguably should have been. Yeah. When I look at Kelvin Gastelum, that's kind of who he reminds me of physically.
They both knocked out Bisping, so.
Yeah, true. Very true. There's a common thing that runs here. Oh, I do love Bisping. Great guy, by the way. I've had the chance to meet him. Absolute legend of a man. But anyway, we're on to number 3, ladies and gentlemen. And who could possibly go above Alexander the Mauler Gustafsson and Dan Henderson? Well, I'm going to tell you who that is. It's Alistair the Demolition Man Overeem. This guy is truly one of the most terrifying heavyweights I've ever seen. I mean, the guy was just jacked beyond jacked back in the day. You know, the mohawk,
Horse
you know,
meat.
the 16 pack that he had.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's just absolutely insane. I mean, look at what he did to Brock Lesnar, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, went in and absolutely ran him over in that fight. You know, I always think of that side kick to the gut. Obviously, Brock, I think, was suffering from diverticulitis at the time, but what a kick. And it just absolutely messed Lesnar up. I mean, Overeem is just one of the most insane fighters ever. You know, world-class, world champion kickboxer as well. Fought in Pride, won kickboxing world titles, and yet somehow never won a UFC world title, which is just beyond strange to me. For those reasons and for many more, Alistair Overeem is worthy of a podium in my top 5.
Yeah, hard to argue that. I mean, you talk about a legend in the UFC, that's Alistair Overeem. See what he did in kickboxing, in Pride, K1, and what he did when he entered the UFC, especially that Brock Lesnar fight, beat the brakes out of him.
Oh,
And it was nice to see Alistair have that final run before dropping one to Volkov. I mean, he won like 4 or 5 in a row at the age of 40, which just shows you he was still evolving, still getting better, fighting these young, hungry lions. It wasn't enough for him to be a gatekeeper, and he was beating them. So, yeah, man, Alistair Overeem, absolute legend of the sport. And yeah, I'll go on to my number 3 is Colby Chaos Covington. Colby, I think, still has a chance to get the title, although it's going to be really hard with Usman. And if Khamzat Chimaev lives up to the hype, Colby Covington has beaten everybody in the welterweight division who he's fought. Besides Kamaru Usman, he's actually held the interim title as well. I mean, and he took Usman to deep, deep waters. We haven't seen Kamaru Usman been in close fights like that in the past 4 or 5 years. Usman hasn't lost a single fight in the UFC, but the toughest run for his money has consistently been Colby Covington. And yeah, I mean, that guy, he says what he says, does what he does. People have problems with him, or people don't. He's a great fucking fighter.
yeah, dude, hell yeah. That's a great shout. Yeah. Regardless of your thoughts on Colby Covington, the guy comes to fight, and he's given Kamaru Usman his toughest ever fights, which tells you all you need to know. Yeah. And the guy is not even halfway probably through his career yet. Mm-hmm. So he has plenty of time to work his way back up, and he's more than talented enough. Great pick. So we come to number 2, just behind my greatest fighter never to win a UFC title, and it's Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Absolute legend of the sport is the Cowboy. You know, I think if he doesn't still, he held for a long time, you know, the most performance bonuses I think ever. Somewhere around the most finishes alongside Jim Miller too. I mean, Donald Cerrone is just a legend. He really is. You know, had some amazing wins at lightweight, always bounced up between lightweight and welterweight, has never, ever backed down from a fight, fought everybody he was asked to. And that's probably the reason why he didn't win a title. If Cowboy had been more selective in his fights, he probably would have held a world title at the very least at 155. You know, I could list off all his great wins, but it would just take too long. Yeah. You know, you all probably know what I'm talking about already. Textbook definition of a legend, Donald Cowboy Cerrone. And if he's not in anybody's list of the top 5 never to win a belt, then something's very wrong, because he deserves to not only be in that list, but at the near towards the very top as well. Donald Cerrone, number 2.
Yeah, I think Cowboy would crack my top 10 just because he's had a few losses in the recent past. But he's an absolute legend. Most finishes in UFC history. I think he's number 2 at that. Fights everyone, every time, everywhere. He's been in some wars. He's beaten the biggest names in the sport, and he's fought for the belt a couple times and been this close to winning it. But for some reason, he wasn't able to turn up in those title fights, and that cost him. And that's a very interesting point that you made about him accepting every fight, and maybe that caused him to not win a title. If he would have been a little more selective, like you said, maybe he could have been, you know, holding that belt at some point in his career.
I think so.
So yeah, absolute legend, Cowboy Cerrone. Can't hate on the guy ever. He's just, his personality, his fighting is just super entertaining. The man. And number 2, I have Tony El Kakui Ferguson. Tony Ferguson, 12 fight win streak in the lightweight division. He held the interim belt. He fought everybody as well, and he finished them. Never in a boring fight. He's got so much heart, so much skill. And I mean, Tony Ferguson, an absolute legend of the sport. It's sad to see him lose 3 in a row. I didn't even think that was possible, but he's the fucking boogeyman. And it's surprising that it's just so annoying that 5 fights between him and Khabib got canceled when they were both in their absolute primes, which is so disappointing. I'm sure Tony had some tricks up his sleeve to deal with Khabib.
Yeah, I absolutely think he did. I think you've made an amazing case for him as well. And perhaps to no one's shock, he is actually my number 1. It is Tony El Kakui Ferguson. Like you said, 12 fight win streak. And that's not just in any division. Yeah. That's in arguably the murderer's rove division of lightweight. Yep. You know, the guy is just special. He's a special fighter, a special talent, a special human being, the likes of which we'll probably never see again. You know, a bit like Cowboy Cerrone, fought everybody, but probably had much more success than Cowboy Cerrone did. You know, legendary jiu-jitsu skills, unbelievably unorthodox standing, fighting, as well as strikes. Just, there's not even a word to describe them. Abstract doesn't even come close. The guy is just special. He really is. One of my favorite Ultimate Fighter contestants of all time. I'm not going to tell you why, because just offensive, but just one of the best tough contestants of all time. And, you know, even look at when he won the interim title over Kevin Lee, perfect triangle over a then game Kevin Lee, which was no easy feat at all. Won the interim strap, had 5 fights cancelled with Khabib. And to be honest with you, if we're talking, you know, 2015, perhaps 2016 Ferguson against Khabib, I think it's one of the most intriguing fights ever. And that's why we wanted to see it happen. You know, we were robbed, I have no doubt, of one of the greatest fights we'd have ever seen in Ferguson Khabib. But that's beside the point. Tony Ferguson, for me, greatest fighter never to win the title.
Yeah. Tony Ferguson, special human being. So different than anybody in the way he speaks and in the way he fights. And I think that's why people are attracted to him. And what he could do, and what he could do at 155, the murderer's row, was phenomenal.
No question.
For my number 1, I actually have Dustin Poirier. I know Dustin Poirier didn't have as long a streak as Tony, but I think what put him over the edge for me over Tony was he had the tougher fights. He's beaten more former champions, and I think he's done a little bit more in that 155 division. He also had the interim belt, which he tried to unify with Khabib and lost that, and then he recently lost to Charles Oliveira. But I mean, Dustin Poirier, dude, what a fighter, what a man. He comes in to fight, never been in a boring fight, especially in the past 3 or 4 years. Since he jumped up to 155, he's looked absolutely incredible. His striking, boxing, and the pressure he puts on you is second to none. Dustin Poirier, absolute legend of the sport. And it was, as happy as I am for Charles Oliveira that he beat Dustin, I am hurting a little bit for Dustin because he's just been such a great fighter.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Absolutely perfect pick. And there's very few people who I would consider more worthy of being in that number 1 spot than Dustin Poirier. You know, the only thing that gives me a little bit of comfort, perhaps, is that I think Dustin still has time, you know, perhaps at lightweight to make one more run towards the belt. Yeah. Because I'd love to see him get it. There's no one who deserves it more than Dustin Poirier does. He's such an amazing ambassador of the sport. He's such an amazing ambassador of the UFC. And he deserves to get that belt. He really, really does. But a perfect pick for you tonight. And I don't disagree with it one diddly damn bit.
Yeah. Shout out to fighters like Uriah Faber, Diaz brothers, anybody else you can think of.
Masvidal?
Jorge Masvidal for sure. I think some other people have time to, you know, get to the belt and work on it, but those are some of the legendary fighters who do deserve credit. They would be in the top 10, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the truth is, there's just too many to name.
Yeah.
There's so many
Derek
legends.
Lewis, even. I'd put in there.
Greatest personality never to win.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Imagine him being the baddest man on the planet,
Yeah.
Derek Lewis. Oh, dude.
That would be great. But, well, I think that's that for this week. What a freaking pay-per-view card we had. Just unbelievable what happened. I mean, it was just so crazy. Perfect way to end the year. And then we got one more fight night with Derek Lewis and Chris Daukus, which should be amazing as well. I mean, yeah, I still can't believe what happened last night. I really cannot.
I'm still stunned. I'm just, anytime we're ever going to mention this fight, I'm never going to have the words to describe the feeling. It's just cataclysmic what happened.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, thanks for the time, man. And follow us on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, like, share. We appreciate you guys.
Yep.
We'll keep it going. So do you. Thank you so much.
Yep. Pleasure as always. Thank you tonight, brother. And on to the next one.
On to the next one.